In a previous video in this series, we walked through how to start the process of creating a forms library in a Microsoft Dynamics portal. So here's an example. We can see that we've got a list of forms, some of them that have already been completed, and then some that are still left to complete for a customer that's logged into the portal and they work for DOE's Dynamics distributors. So we can see that information there. Now let's go ahead and refresh because I've actually deleted those, so we're going to be starting again so we can see we don't actually have any at the moment. Now what we're going to do is we are going to use a trigger that says, okay, well, when are we going to generate forms? Now this trigger can be whatever you wanted it to be. It could be when you actually create a new account. It could be when you change a status to say now they're a customer. All I've done is I've set a field here that says generate new forms. I'm going to go ahead and tick it, and that will be my trigger. Now, a couple of things before we start looking at the flow that we need to do. So I'm going to go into one of the forms that I've created. So I've created a survey in Forms Pro for each form that I would want my customer to fill out. So in my example, I've got four: Form A, Form B, Form C, and Form D, just to be very original. Now, what I've got on the form itself, first of all, is if I go ahead and click on the ellipsis here, I've got the ability to personalize this survey, and I've added two additional parameters. So the first name and last name get added automatically. We've gone in and all you do is just click add personalized data, add in what you want it to be called, and then click add. So it's as simple as that. Okay, so we've already got one, so that didn't work. So we've got form ID and we've got account. Then what you can see is that I've added the account value just by, when you're typing in the description underneath the name of the survey, you'll be able to see all of the values that you've added in there. So I've just added the account name to the last part of the survey, just so that when they open up the survey they can say complete the form below for DOE's Dynamics distributors or whoever it might be. Okay, so now that we've done that, let's go into our flow and see what's happening. So remember, I just clicked the option to generate the new forms for that account. So my very first step is when a record is updated and the entity that is being updated is an account. But what we're doing is we're saying we'll filter it and only trigger it when the generate new forms is actually changed. That's what we're looking for. So my condition then, let's make this a bit smaller so we can see. My condition is then, does the generate new forms equal true? So in other words, is it set to yes? If it's not, we do nothing. So our no column is empty. We're not doing anything. If it's true, we're doing a couple of things. Now this is just my example, but you might do something different. It might be a specific contact. But when you generate an invitation for a Forms Pro survey, you need to specify a person. So you have to put in an email address and a name at the moment. That might change in the future, but right now that's what you need to do. So in my example, all I'm doing is I'm going to get the primary contact and I'm actually going to link that survey invitation to them. However, because we set up our entity permissions for the account, the scope of account previously when we were customizing the portal, that means anyone that's linked to that account will be able to see it, but we have to get a contact to link to. So we are doing a get record step and we are basically getting the contact and we're doing the primary contact from our trigger, so from the account record. Then what we're doing, you can see that I have these running as parallel branches. I could actually just run everything one underneath each other. It really depends how many forms you have as to if you wanted to do it parallel or you wanted to just run everything one underneath each other. Running it parallel means that your forms will be created essentially at the same time. If you run them one underneath each other, then it will have to do Form A first, then Form B, then Form C, and so on. So again, it really depends on how many forms you have that you're creating. So the very first thing that we are doing is remember remember when we were looking at the custom entity that we created. Our custom entity was the form request record. Now the reason for this is that the survey invitation or the survey responses or any of the Forms Pro entities, they're locked. You cannot edit them. And we needed to do a few additional things that we wouldn't be able to do if we used one of those entities. So the very first thing we're doing is we are creating a form request, and we're going to create a form request for each of our forms that we want someone to actually fill out. So we are doing, and all of these are going to be exactly the same. We're just repeating it for each form. So we're doing form request, that's the entity we're going to get. What we're going to do then is we've got our form details field, which is one of the custom forms, and we are just going to put in, well, what is that form? So it's just information, a description, so that the contact logged into the portal knows what the form is for. Then we are doing the form name. So again, whatever you call that form, you're going to go ahead and type that in. Then what we're doing is we're setting the regarding, and the regarding is set against the account, which is the account from the first trigger step. So when we clicked on the generate forms, that's the account that we're putting in there. Next, what we're doing is we are generating a survey invitation using the Forms Pro connector. We are then selecting the survey, and then we're going through and we are populating values from the primary contact. We're using the email. You can see there, get primary contact step. We're using their email address, their first name, and their last name. We are then setting the survey invitation regarding the account, and the recipient details is going to be the contact, which is the primary contact. Okay, now for the regarding the recipient, if you haven't seen any of the videos before about this, or you haven't done anything like this, you have to type out the name of the entity first, then a comma, and then pull in your ID. Okay. Then what we're doing is we want to take the form ID and the account, and we want to pass them through this survey invitation. So this URL that we're generating, we're going to pass those through as parameters, because then when the survey is completed and the response comes through, we want to pass those parameters back so we can identify which survey was completed. All right, so we're going to populate those. That is populated from the step above where we created the form request right here. So we are getting the form ID from there, and we're getting the account name from the trigger. Then what we're going to do is we are going to update the form A, so the form request record we created, we're updating it with the form link. So this is so that within the portal, when we have created these form request records, that's what's going to be displayed in the list for us. And when we click on the link, it will take us to that specific survey. All right, so hopefully all of that makes sense. And again, these are exactly the same steps. It's just that our form name and form description and everything is going to be different. And we're walking through, and when we create the invites, we are using the form ID from the step right above it. So we can see there, create form C request. So the form ID is from the create form C request step, and so on. And then when we update, we get this invitation link from the form related step, so that we're pulling in the correct invitation. Now if I go back to my forms library and I refresh for this person that's logged in, we can see we've got all of those forms that were created. We've got a nice reference number so that we know exactly which one it is. We have the name of the form, and behind that we're using that as a pretty name for the link, but behind that is the link to the personalized survey. We've got the details that we added in Flow for that specific form, and then we have the date that we've generated the form. If I click on that, it will then open up the form for me, and there's the account name because we use that personalization in Forms Pro on the survey. And then we would go ahead and complete that form. So hopefully that makes sense. We've basically got our flow that is creating all those records for us, so that when someone logs into the portal, they can see a list of all of the forms that they have to complete.
Hi, I'm Megan Walker. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and that you learned something from it. If you don't want to miss out on any other content, you can go ahead and click on my face below to subscribe. And if you want to watch the next video, you can do that by clicking over here and go ahead and get started. Thanks again.